Hey guys, it's Laura Shima here for Jolly Edition. Today is pretty special because it is the first episode in a series of episodes about pricing. The most asked question I get is, how do you price your work? In response to that question, I'm making a series of episodes based around pricing for creatives. As an industry of creative professionals, it's just impossible to price match what we make because each creative's process, deliverable, pricing is different because each of us are so different. I'm on a mission to empower you creative entrepreneurs out there to define your terms of service, identify what you're worth, and to never settle for less. Today, I'm talking about spec work, a term that creatives dread and avoid like the plague. First things first, of course, what's spec work? Spec, short for speculative work. Spec work is any project where the value to you as a vendor has been deferred. We're not just talking about money, we're talking about value entirely. Spec work usually looks like a moneyless, value-based proposition. Do this for me because the exposure is going to make you rich and famous. Or worse, do this for me for no reason. That's not spec work, that's a con job. There is a really good example of spec work working out fantastically for the vendor. Back in the early days of Facebook, if you can imagine, there was a graffiti artist out there who was asked to paint murals on the Facebook offices. At the time, what Facebook had to offer him was stock. So now that lucky guy is sitting on millions and millions worth of stock. I wish there were more examples I could provide where that was the case. There's this bogus perception out there that the exposure for the work is worth more than the work itself. It's not. There's also this crazy idea out there that because creatives love what they do and it's all they do, then that love for your own work should be reward in itself. But that's not the case. Ideally, what the clients are looking for, a low budget, very fast timeline, and great quality. From the vendor's perspective, that Venn diagram looks more like budget, a reasonable timeline, and creative control. It is a bit of a truism that you can only really supply 2 out of the 3. And if you're supplying all 3, like a great budget, a great timeline, and great work, then someone's being taken advantage of here. Of course, in this spec situation, the budget's being removed. So you have to ensure that those 2 other circles are being met with 100% creative control and, of course, a reasonable timeline. So, of course, when you first clicked on this, you saw spec work, you're probably thinking, spec work is a waste of time. What I'm going to say is make spec work work for you. I'll be reviewing strategies so that when you hear spec work, you think this is an opportunity that can work for me and I can get what I want out of it. Number 1, let's assess the client. Spec work usually sounds like, I don't have the money to pay you. What you've got to do is identify the client's position on payment. Are they simply being disrespectful, as in, I don't think your time and skill is worth that money, because that's not okay? Or are they saying more along the lines of, I don't have the budget to accommodate your prices? If the client can't pay for what they're asking for, maybe you can ask them what they can offer. Professional trade, stock, define whatever you find valuable or whatever you think could be valuable. So of course, the biggest red flag out there is someone saying that you should do this for free because of exposure. So of course, this usually translates to someone else is going to pay you, as in, I'm going to put your stuff up so that somebody else can see it and then someone else can pay you for the job you did for me for free. Clearly, that is a client you don't want to work with. Clearly, skip it, pass. But that's great because now you know who you don't want to work with. If your potential clients have passed these standards, then that's great. It's a green light for you. Let's consider if this project overall is going to work for you now that you've said yes to the client. All right, number 2, identifying value. The number 1 question, of course, then becomes, what do you want from this project? Let's start with exposure. The number one reason to do spec work, exposure. So exposure can be a perfectly valid lure. So get some data that backs up the client's promises of value. Followers, amounts of engagement, anything that will prove to you that putting your time and your skill and your energy into this project will be worth it. I can guarantee you that Zuckerberg was able to project how successful his company was going to be, or that the stock was worth anything whatsoever. You could want it for a legacy piece. Is this going to be a trophy project? Is this something that you've always wanted to do and something that you can just be proud of? Or is it a portfolio piece? Some people want to change the direction of their career. Will this work push your portfolio in a direction that you want it to go? Before accepting, consider a few things. Time. Do you have enough time in your schedule to get this done? Will the time that you spend on this project interfere with any other projects? Along those lines, is this going to interfere with your work-life balance? Do you have enough headspace to accommodate this? And on a more material focus, what are the expenses? Do you have to do any traveling? Do you need to buy any new materials? All in all, the question is more, will it cost you in any way, shape, or form? Whether that's money, whether that's energy, whether it's just headspace that you need. If we've gone through all of this and you say, yes, 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 I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I want to do it, that sounds like a great project. Then we come to number 3, the spec strategy. All of that sounds doable. You're excited by the project, you want to do it. Now, how do you ensure that you get what you want out of it? You need to define your terms, especially because there's no money involved. They are your client and you are their professional. This should be outlined in every exchange that you have, but especially when there's no money involved, so that they know that you are the professional and they treat you as such. Because that can often be forgotten if they're not paying you. This is a great opportunity for you to explain what you expect of them. And it's a great opportunity for them to understand how to be a good client. So here's how to make sure that your client knows what to expect. State your terms early. Make sure that you are 100% in creative control. Make sure that the timeline is favorable to you. Make sure that you have complete rights to the work and you are able to share it on any platform that you wish. And if it's helpful, ask for a testimonial for your work. Share an invoice with your client for the full value of this project, what you would normally charge them for this. This reminds them of your worth, even if they're not paying for it. The way to hold your clients to these terms is to make an agreement. You should be making agreements with your clients regardless if they're paying or not. Okay, I'm gonna make a list, another list. List the deliverables. What are you delivering? What do they expect? What do you expect? Define a timeline for the work. Identify the stakeholders. Who are you answering to? Who is the decision maker? Who says yes and who says no? Side note, if there's a ton of people involved in this, they should be able to actually pay you. What is so important in an agreement, or even before then, is to explain your process. They're going to be aware and they're going to agree with how you run your project and how they work with you. Research. The least that a client can do is tell you what they want. There's no better way to capture all of those expectations than research itself. I'll do another video on research. So much about client management is just being on the same page as your client and then being on your page. Misaligned expectations is what really creates conflict, so to avoid that is best. Okay, back to the agreement. Changes. Define your expectations for changes. How many is too many? What is changes and what is feedback? What's acceptable? Be clear on your definition of what constitutes feedback and what constitutes changes. Identify the stages of your particular process and when your client can expect those stages. You may not want to be entirely prescriptive of the day that you're going to get something to someone, because once a project starts, the scope can change, expectations can maneuver a little bit. There can be requests added in that, of course, affect the overall timeline. Allow yourself to be flexible. Define etiquettes. Defining etiquette, that's a good one. Yeah, so just professional etiquette, such as what days you work. If you work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, let the client know that they shouldn't be expecting responses on the weekend. That sort of thing. Are you happy to take phone calls? Are you happy to be texting them and then you? That all falls within etiquette. And that's something that you should address sooner than later. Etiquette can sort of slide into abuse. So, for instance, if there's derogatory language or just complete disrespect, that's up to you to define. And you should define it in your agreements. Because abuse is a deal breaker and you should not be subject to it. Of course, specify the terms of value. For instance, being credited on a website that you built. Did they agree to post on Instagram about you? Defining the expiration date for this project. Make sure the client knows when this project ends. If they're asking for more work, that's great. But it is a new product and it means different terms in a different contract and a new discussion. You don't want your client that you did all this free work for to come back to you in 4 months saying, oh, that one thing that you forgot to do, blah, blah, blah. That's what the expiration of the project means. Okay, we're gonna be wrapping it up now. So spec work's not a dirty word. It can be great. It's a great way for beginners to create and develop a portfolio of their own that they want to speak for them. It's a great way to reinvent what you're known for. If you get the opportunity to work on something you never would have thought that you would work on, but has always been of interest to you, or making work that defines your legacy, it can be great, it can work out great. This is a video not spamming spec work, but empowering you to make the most of it. The best thing about spec work is that it's offering you an opportunity to be in the driver's seat. You've got to realize how much power you have when you participate in spec work. Making it worth your time and your talent. Don't waste that. Those are the most important things that you have to work with. Your time and your talent. Because you're special and they are asking for your expertise. Always realize the value that you are bringing to a project, even if you're not being paid in dollars. You got this. You got this. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm Larshima. This has been Jolly Edition. This has been the first video in my Pricing for Creatives series. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below or DM me at Jolly Edition. Bye. I'll see you guys soon.